Direct from Kansas City, it's Comic Book Late Night with Captain Logan! Featuring brand new comic book reviews, thoughts on comic news, obscure character of the week, and a little something from the comic vault. And now, here's Captain Logan!
Hello everyone, welcome once again to Comic Book Late Night. I am indeed Captain Logan, and as you can see, it is Casual Batman Day, once again. If you didn't get the memo, it's Casual Batman Day, so you can wear anything you want to that has Batman on it. Be sure and tell your friends. And tonight I want to start off by talking a little bit about butlers in relationship to superheroes. You know, we get this idea with Alfred Pennyworth that being a superhero, it would be fantastic to have a butler. A confidant, somebody to bring you food and fix all your stuff. But, like with anything, there are pros and cons. And so, tonight I have prepared for you the top 5 pros and cons to being a superhero with a butler. Here we go. Number 1. Pro. He'll bring you tea or coffee or croissants at just the time you're feeling peckish without even having to tell him you're feeling peckish. Con. He'll be nosy about your latest crime-fighting escapades, and he won't hand you the tray until you tell him what you're up to. Number 2. Pro. He'll be your lifelong companion. Con. That's his lifetime, as he'll probably be 3 times your age. You'll spend a lot of time wondering when your helper and confidant is going to keel over, and you'll have to look for a new one. Number 3. Pro. He'll be one of the only, if the only, person who needs to know your secret, and he'll guard it with his life. Con. Anyone else in your life who needs to know your secret will be decided by your butler, as he'll take it upon himself to inform them, and in many cases, make them a superhero costume of their own, and hoodwink you into turning them into your sidekick. Number 4. Pro. If he knows you're in trouble, he won't hesitate to save you. Con. Butlers look ridiculous in superhero costumes. And finally, number 5. Pro. He's good at nearly everything. He can fix your car, your computer, your appliances, your meals. Con. You might be the world's greatest detective, but he is the world's greatest everything else. When he acts superior, he's probably actually validated. Well, I'm going to have a great show for you tonight. I'm going to review some new comics, including a small press comic called 41, done by Primal Paper out of Virginia, and that was sent to me by the real Manos, by some folks that he knows, so I'm going to review that a little bit later. I'm also going to be hopefully talking to Cullen Bunn, who's writing the current arc for Superman Batman, although we've been having some weird phone troubles here at the studios today, here at Geekvolution Studios, so we'll see how it goes. I'm going to try really hard to interview Cullen Bunn, so bear with me, having some issues with the phones, but we're going to really try it. Anyway, right now, it's time once again for brand new comic book reviews. Okay, let's go ahead and kick off the reviews today with the first 2 issues of 41 by Bob France. 41 is named so because, in this world, it's been 41 years since an apocalyptic event that decimated society as we know it. Hernandez, the leader of the mercenary group we follow through the book, narrates at the beginning, and says, 41 years since a madman unleashed terror. At least, that's what I think happened. 2 billion souls, civilization, wiped out in an instant. We're not told exactly how this happened, and it's not important. I like that this post-apocalyptic world is simply the backdrop for the mercenary story France is telling, rather than the focus. It's something I imagine he'll explore later, but for now, all that matters is that society was flourishing, then it was destroyed, and now mankind is trying to find a way to bounce back. This group kind of feels like the A-Team if they were hired guns. They drive around in their trademark pickup truck instead of a van, they get in a car chase while firing weapons, and they crack jokes while being shot at. France injects a fair amount of humor in his bleak future, and it's quite appropriate. These guys seem to have the attitude that living in such a sucky world, they've got to laugh a little, or it's not worth living in. The first issue is mostly non-stop action, as some of the mercenaries are being attacked out in the street, trying to get to their rendezvous with the rest of the team for a meeting about their next job. France uses this as an opportunity to introduce us to each of his characters, simply with a name and a job title and character trait. At first, this seems a little risky, labels that pretty quickly stereotype these people. Sid, mechanic, Mr. Perfect. Rusty, explosive expert, never stops talking. Carter, the smart one, etc.
And Carter's the only woman, so I found myself thinking, of course she's the smart one. That's pretty typical. But especially by the second issue, France seems to have places he wants to take these characters, and this is just a way for us to get them straight. I have every confidence they'll become more than these simple labels. I really appreciate this since an ensemble cast can be hard to tell apart and keep straight if the writer isn't thinking about it. They also all have very unique designs. The leader has a beard, the mechanic wears a ball cap, etc. I won't go too much into the second issue because I do recommend giving this a shot, and there's a fair amount of story here I'd rather not ruin. There's a scientist being held captive by a mysterious group, and they're torturing him for information. A team that describes themselves as research and development specializing in the advancement and survival of the human race hire the mercenaries to take out the scientist. I'm assuming because he has information they don't want this other group to have. One of the mercenaries is killed, which was a surprise since this is only the second issue and we were introduced to all these people at the end of the first, as if they're the main characters we'll be following through the whole series. The reveal at the end is quite intriguing, and France really knows how to keep his readers coming back. I was caught off guard at first by the lettering because it's so large. It's not a problem, but it's unusual. Suffice it to say, it wasn't hard to read. But both issues have fantastic artwork, and the balloons do get in the way a little. I enjoyed the gritty, detailed art in both issues, and it's surprisingly consistent considering it's done by two different artists, but I like the work from the second artist, Singleton, a little more than Pepino's. There are a couple panels in the first issue I felt the proportions of people were a little off, where the head looked a little big for the body, but Pepino does have a flair for urban landscapes, while Singleton's characters are more polished. If you're interested in the book, send a message to the real Manos and he can get you hooked up, or contact Primal Paper through the 41 Facebook page or any of their other pages. Primal Paper has 3 other titles available now, including Willpower, the Baku, and the Skyrocket. I'll be reviewing Skyrocket soon. And I'm hoping to have Bob on the show sometime in the near future. Now let's go over to Marvel and take a look at Avengers number 12. I have mixed feelings about how Bendis finished this off. On the one hand, and I will have to spoil this, so skip ahead 30 seconds if you don't want to know, it's clever that Doctor Strange is posing as Thanos to try to get the Hood to give up his gems. I didn't see it coming, and it really was a brilliant move on his part. On the other hand, I was really excited to see Thanos possibly going after the gems again, so I was a little disappointed when it wasn't him. I love the Infinity Gauntlet, and I love Thanos. Of course, I've got to be objective. This shouldn't have just been that story all over again. I mean, if I want to read that, I own the Infinity Gauntlet, and I can just go read it. Suffice it to say, the way the gems are retrieved by the Avengers makes sense and is pretty satisfying. I guess it just wasn't what I was expecting, but seeing Red Hulk battle the Hood with various versions of the Marvel Universe looming in black and white behind them, including Marvel Zombies, was definitely the highlight of the issue for me and is pretty epic. I love what finally happens with the Infinity Gauntlet at the end. I kind of saw it coming a couple pages ahead, but it was clever nevertheless. The art gets the main players in a different place by the end, and it's nice to see such an important artifact like the Infinity Gauntlet used to further character interaction, especially between Tony, Steve, and the Red Hulk. The one thing I really question, though, is how noble Tony is when he has the Infinity Gauntlet in his hand. He talks about all the things he could change in his life, but he never really considers doing it. And Tony isn't even close to perfect. I think that kind of power would overwhelm Tony Stark, at least enough to make him think a little harder about using it for his own gain. Now, I'm not saying that's what he should have done, but I do think he should have been more tempted. It's a little issue. This issue is also making me realize something I hadn't thought much about before. There are way too many characters in this book. Most of them stand around and occasionally spout a joke or piece of exposition, but each arc centers on 3 or 4, and the rest are nearly invisible except for giant fight scenes. Did we even need Spider-Man and Wolverine these 6 issues? Did they really do anything? It's just a thought. Okay, so last week I advertised that I was going to talk about Red Robin, and then I conveniently forgot to put it in. I totally recorded it, and then it didn't make it into the show. So, today we're going to talk about Red Robin number 22, and then we're going to go on to Gotham City Sirens, which is a follow-up to what happens in this issue. I feel like I just jumped into a book I haven't been reading, which is really because that's exactly what happened. There really should be some indication on the cover that this issue continues an arc that started in Batman number 708, like Reign of Doomsday, though I still don't love these stories told between monthly titles. Despite not having read part 1, I do like what's here. Red Robin's caught in the middle of an insane holy war. Azrael and a superpowered nutjob called the Crusader are judging Gotham, and they've decided to put Red Robin through a physical and moral test. He has to decide if he should risk innocence to save the mayor, a corrupt politician. Fabian Nicieza always writes Tim as a very human character, and this is no different. The issue opens with him standing at his parents' grave, and we learn that his mother was somewhat religious and that his father wasn't at all, so he's never relied on faith. I like that he's not just anti-religious, immediately looking at Azrael as a madman. Sure, what he's doing is crazy, but Tim tries to find the human angle. He asks himself how anyone could possibly think what they're doing to Gotham is what God, if there is a God, would want. And when he's being judged, Tim says that in the past he's tried to believe, he just doesn't. And I won't spoil the verdict that Azrael and the Crusader reach. In a lot of ways, it's a pretty classic Batman story, and I kind of wish Bruce was involved with this. Okay, so part 3 of this Judgment in Gotham storyline happens in Gotham City Sirens number 22. Before I even get into the issue, I gotta say I love this cover. It's beautiful, and it's a perfect representation of what Catwoman's going through this issue and what she's been going through forever. Her costume's tattered and torn, she's bloodied, and she has an angel wing on one side and a devil wing on the other, always walking the line between criminal and hero, and ultimately, she never wins. Just like in Red Robin, the Crusader and Azrael put her through a test, an impossible scenario, setting her up for failure. I complained about this story format in Red Robin, but I'll give it a pass here. Her test directly ties to a lot of things that have been going on with her in Gotham City Sirens, and it's the perfect way to bring her sister back into the picture. I wasn't a big fan of that plot before. Her sister having this religious obsession and believing that Selina is possessed with a cat demon, but it's working for me here. She's forced to face her figurative demons and the guilt she has with how she's treated her sister in the past. Her sister wants to die, and her test is to kill her. It's hard not to feel for her. Like Tim, she's got the weight of Gotham on her shoulders, but the added intensity of how personal it is for her makes it all the more gripping. Selina makes the same point to Azrael and the Crusader that I always think about whenever religious zealots are judging people and sentencing them to their doom in stories like this. Aren't they choosing certain parts of the Bible to follow and ignoring others? She reminds them that the Bible says the only one who can judge sinners is God. She then quotes Jesus on the cross and says, "What about, forgive them for they know not what they do?" To which Azrael responds with, "I want to forgive them, but they must prove they are worthy of being forgiven." Which confirms Catwoman's earlier statement, "You really are crazy, aren't you?" These guys claim to be acting in the name of God, but in fact, they've invented their own version of God and they're making up the rules as they go along. It's always frightening to think that people might do something like this with religion. And yes, these are certainly ideas that have been explored numerous times, but it's done well here, and it's used to study some of the complex characters in Batman's world. I really liked this one. And finally, my favorite guilty pleasure, Tiny Titans number 39. You can tell that Art Baltazar loves the DC Universe. This kid's series is his love letter to it, and I couldn't help but smile at the Superman movie quote on the cover, "I like pink very much, Lois," which Superman says to Lois in Donner Superman when she asks him to x-ray her and she's wearing pink underwear. You'd think from the cover that this one's going to be obnoxiously girly, but it's not. It's the same Tiny Titans fun we get every month, with a few less in-jokes and a lot more practical humor, though it's still really funny. Alfred gets the Penguins to do the laundry for him so he can read comic books, and they put all the uniforms in with the Superman capes, which turns everyone's suits pink. Then hijinks ensue, including Dick making his Nightwing suit rainbow colors, which is at least cooler looking, he thinks, than pink, and Batman complaining that he can't strike fear in the hearts of evildoers wearing pink. I like how Cassandra refuses to take her mask off when the laundry gets started, so it's still black while the rest of her outfit is pink. There is a great Smallville reference when no one believes it's Superman flying around wearing pink, and he's referred to on the news as the mysterious pink blur. And now, the news. So the next DC animated movie that's currently in development is Batman Year One, Frank Miller's Batman Year One, and we now have a couple of production stills. Really exciting. Looks fantastic. According to Bruce Timm and his team, 80% of the animation movie is taken directly from the angles of the panels in the comic book, which is really neat. I hope it's as close and faithful as they're saying it's going to be, and I think we have a really good chance of seeing something that's better than All-Star Superman was. And the thing about doing Year One, this is something that makes a lot of sense to me, to do an animation, because it's not real long. I mean, like, it's a story that really feels like it would fit in. I mean, I know it's a story that covers a whole year, but I mean, like, just as far as how much happens in it, it seems like you could do this really well in even an 80-minute movie. So hopefully they manage to do a really great job with it. And if the casting choices are any indication, I think it has a shot at being really fantastic. So Batman is going to be voiced by Bryan Cranston of Breaking Bad, and the thing I'm really excited about is Elijah Dushku playing Selena Kyle. That's an inspired casting choice, and I love Elijah Dushku, so I'm really excited about that. And really surprising is Katie Sackhoff playing Sarah Essen. Katie Sackhoff, if you don't know, is known mostly for her role as Starbuck in Battlestar Galactica. Once again, an inspired choice. This is going to be great. I'm even more excited about this movie than I was before. So according to Comic Resources, we now know who Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Marion Cotillard are going to be playing in Dark Knight Rises, and they are, of course, not the rumored Black Mask and Talia al Ghul, as was reported a few weeks ago on a lot of respected websites, and in fact, I even shot a news segment of Comic Late Night that week, and then found out that it was a rumor, and I had to scratch it. It turns out that they're going to be both playing made-up characters for the movie. Ooh, what a surprise! So I'll just quote this. I'm quoting a Comic Resources article. Cotillard will play Miranda Tate, described as a Wayne Enterprises board member who's eager to help a still-grieving Bruce Wayne resume his father's philanthropic work. Gordon-Levitt will take on the role of John Blake, a Gotham beat cop assigned to special duty under the command of Commissioner James Gordon. So, yeah, this is not a surprise, and always we need to keep in mind that Christopher Nolan makes a movie before he makes a Batman movie. So just because he is casting big-name actors who he's worked with before and who people like, does not mean that they're going to be people that we've heard of. So, don't be too terribly disappointed, because that would have been a really thick movie with way too many characters, and we could have had Spider-Man 3-itis. And I don't know. I mean, a lot of people, when they thought that it was going to be Black Mask and Talia al Ghul, they were like, oh no, it's Nolan, he can pull it off. Maybe he could, but he's being very consistent with how he makes these movies. So, yeah, I'm totally fine with the fact that he's, making up characters and that he's giving them to actors that he likes. So, there's that. So not a whole lot to say about this, but Linda Carter, who of course played the original Wonder Woman, might actually be getting a role in the NBC Wonder Woman pilot, according to DigitalSpy.com. Who knows what role she would be playing, but she said on The Talk the other day that she may actually be appearing in the pilot as somebody. So that's really neat that they're respecting the old series and doing that. I still don't, from everything we've seen, I don't think that the show's going to be that great, but it's neat that they're giving her a part. So awesome there. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is just this interesting article I found on the Star Tribune about this guy who unfortunately, as far as I know, what I read is that he died in a house fire about a year ago, and he had this huge comic book collection. And his house, he was a bus driver, and his house went up in flames. And his comic book collection was spared. It didn't get the comic books. They were all fine, but he unfortunately passed away in the fire. And his collection has since then been appraised, and the family is now selling pieces of it off. And it's worth over $1 million. And in fact, some people are estimating that it's actually maybe even worth closer to $2 million. And I just find this fascinating because this guy was an avid collector. He knew what he had. He knew he had over 20,000 comics, and according to the people who appraised it, apparently, the majority of them weren't worth, a ton, like most people's collections. He was a reader and a collector, but then he had, a couple thousand that were worth a ton of money. And this guy, like I said, he knew what he had, and he was an aspiring comic book artist. His name, by the way, is Gary Dahlberg, and he was an aspiring comic artist. He did a lot of art, but he could never really break into the industry, so he settled for being a bus driver, and apparently liked that quite a bit. He never married, never had a family, just lived on his own, and had fun with his collection. And apparently he only really ever sold a couple books, and one was I don't know exactly what it was, but he sold a book that was worth $50,000 so that he could put a down payment on his house, so that he could pay for his house.
and he was content to live a modest life and collect comic books. And I don't know, I think that's extremely interesting. Even me being as avid of a comic book fan as I am, I don't know if I could do that. Like, if I had, $2 million worth of comics sitting around in my house, I think I would sell at least the ones that were, worth the most, or at least a couple of them, just to be secure and know I had that kind of security. So it's an extremely interesting thing, and it's really sad what happened to him. Anyway, that's it for the news. And now, how about a trivia question? Today's trivia question is, what was the first year that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles premiered? What was the first year for the first issue of TMNT? If you think you know, be sure to leave your answer in the comments below, and I'll be sure to mention the first person who got it right on next week's episode of Comic Book Late Night. Last week's question was, what recent story arc saw the descendants of the Hulk in possession of the Fantasticar well into the future? And the correct answer for that, of course, was Old Man Logan, and that was first answered correctly by Sierran Proudfoot. So well done to you. And now it's time for another amazing, astounding edition of Know Your Batmobiles. Here is a Batmobile. What year do you think it's from? Is it from 1993? 1998, or the year 2000. And I'll be back at the end of the show to tell you what year it's from. Today on the Comic Grill, I'm going to be talking to Cullen Bunn, hopefully, if we don't have phone troubles. I'm going to talk to Cullen Bunn, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about his series, The Sixth Gun, and also about Superman Batman. Let's take a listen. Okay, and I'm here with Cullen Bunn.
Hello, Captain Logan.
Wait a minute, that's not Cullen Bunn.
No, I am not your guest for the week. I am Dooms Vince, and I have been having difficulty breaking through your firewall, so I decided to just call you and skip the middle part.
Vince, you're not... I told you...
Vince.
I told you never to call me at this number.
I am Dooms Vince, and I am a villain, therefore I do not need to obey by the petty rules of you mortals.
Yeah, okay. Well, see, you ruined my whole thing, because, Cullen Bunn was supposed to be calling, and now he's probably trying to call, but, you're stuck, and you know what, I'm just gonna hang up on you.
No, I demand that you ask me questions, for I am Doomsvince, and I feel that my minions deserve answers.
Wait, okay, so Doomsvince here has somehow rigged it to where I can't hang up on him. I don't know, how did you even do that? Okay, right, because the supervillain laugh is always a good explanation for anything. Okay, so I guess, we're only a minute into this, and this is supposed to be an interview, and I gotta interview someone, so Doomsvince, I guess I'm just gonna interview you.
Sounds appropriate for the situation, Captain Logan.
Okay, I have no idea what your scheme is this time, but seriously, ever since college, it's been the same thing. You try to mess up my shows, and you send me weird packages in the mail, and I'm tired of it.
I will only grow tired of it after I have destroyed you and your followers.
Yeah, okay, well, I don't know about all that, but I guess I'm going to ask you some stuff, and I'm just going to have to do this off the top of my head, because obviously I'm not going to ask you Cullen Bunn's questions. Man, I feel really bad about that. Okay, Doomsvince, are you ready to go into the Comic Grill?
I, Captain Logan, will grill you soon.
I'm grilling you.
I mean that I have a life-size grill, a grill that could fit an entire human.
Wow, really?
Yes, I create large slabs of beef.
Okay, Doomsvince, here is your first question. So, who have you killed lately?
I have recently killed Colin Firth. I have replaced him with a lifelike robot who will now shoot, write, and direct and all that thing, The King's Speech 2. It will be set on Mars.
See, that sounds even less likely than the giant life-size grill.
Do not question my methods. My evil will destroy you in a way that you have never seen before.
See, I asked you that, Vince, because I don't think you've ever killed anyone.
Vince! And yes, I've killed many people.
Alright, question number 2. If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be?
What does this have to do with comic books? Your show is terrible.
I'm doing this off the top of my head, Vince.
If I were a tree, I would be a doom tree. Harbinger of doom.
There is no such thing as a doom tree.
I will create a doom tree that I can plant my mind into. It will be the most nefarious tree in all of creation.
Wow, okay. I guess I ask everybody this, so I'll ask you this. What's your favorite ongoing monthly?
Doomsman cannot be bothered with monthly issues. I only read miniseries.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you have more issues than just monthly issues. Question number 4. Hey, what's your address and your phone number? And exactly what kind of hacking software did you use to break into my show's feed a couple weeks ago?
I live at the corner of 4th and none of your business, Captain Logan. That's a very hard street to find.
Okay, but what about the other 2 things I asked?
Oh, the hacking software. Actually, I found that at Best Buy. Wait, you don't need to know that. You will find out soon enough when all of my other nefarious plans come to fruition.
Question number 5. Vince, why do you hate me so much?
I hate you, Captain Logan, because you have a show that's terrible. And to be perfectly frank, you're just silly.
Really, that's the whole thing? So you hack into my show, and you try to get my viewers to become your, what'd you call them, doomsayers?
Doomsayers, my minions, my faithful ones.
I don't know, you just sound kind of pathetic to me, man. Like you just, everything in your life now centers around me. Like, how sad is that?
I have many pastimes that do not involve you, Captain Logan.
Uh-huh.
I do on occasion enjoy woodworking.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's all the time I have for you, Vince, but thanks a lot for calling in.
Go on, Vince!
And anyway, now back to the show.
Captain Logan, I promise you, your utter destruction is coming.
Uh-huh. Alright, thanks, buddy.
Okay, well, unfortunately, that didn't work out real well, but just for the record, I do have Cullen Bunn booked for the show. Because of this Doomsvince thing, we weren't able to do it this week, but hopefully within the next couple weeks, we will be seeing Cullen Bunn on the program. Today's Obscure Character of the Week is brought to you by Spider-Woman and Batwoman. Because female superheroes having woman in their name is just a lot more mysterious than girl. Have you ever heard of Solo? First appearing in Web of Spider-Man number 19 in 1986, Solo's catchphrase is, "While Solo lives, terror dies." He's a counter-terrorism operative who has stopped a lot of terrorist plans, including plots by Ultimatum and the Sinister Six, with the help of various heroes in the Marvel Universe. When he fought the Sinister Six, Mysterio made him believe he was fighting the Six when he was in fact attacking Spider-Man, but he finally defeated them, aided by Spider-Man, Hulk, Sleepwalker, Nova, Ghost Rider, and the Fantastic Four. Yeah, I'm sure with that lineup, he was extremely necessary. In fact, he's fought with Spider-Man several times, also against Taskmaster and Red Skull, and even against villainous versions of Spidey, Captain America, and Hawkeye. He's shown up in Civil War as one of the heroes opposing registration, though later he did register, and in Dark Reign, hired by Bullseye's father to capture Bullseye. He has teleportation powers, though they're pretty limited. He can only travel a certain distance, and he has to wait a while before he can teleport again. He's also an expert in martial arts and weapons. He did have his own miniseries, but I think it's amusing that while he's called Solo, he's usually teamed up with someone. And special thanks to Nightspawn, with some X's in his name, for suggesting this week's Obscure Character of the Week. If you have an idea for Obscure Character of the Week, or some fan art you'd like to show off, a question you have for me, anything like that, feel free to send me a personal message over Geekvolution, and I'd love to hear from you. You can also send us a package or a letter to our P.O. Box if there's anything you'd like us to review that you want to send to us, either for Geeks Not Nerds, or for Recommends, or for me here at Comic Book Late Night. Be sure to send us a package to the P.O. Box. And now it's time for another exciting edition of useless knowledge to cram your brain with. Most Batman fans know that Alfred Pennyworth actually started out as Alfred Beagle. In his earliest appearances, however, his name was a mystery, as he just said he was the son of a butler named Jarvis. It was never clear if Jarvis was his father's first or last name, so he could have been Alfred Jarvis. After he was officially named Alfred Beagle, that later became the name of his Earth 2 counterpart, and the main version was Alfred Pennyworth. His full name is Alfred Thaddeus Crane Pennyworth, and he has sometimes used Thaddeus Crane as an alias.
In Alfred's earliest appearances, he was younger and heavyset, and wasn't Bruce Wayne's legal guardian and father figure after the passing of Bruce's parents as he's portrayed now. His father, Jarvis, asks Alfred on his deathbed to continue his work, even though Bruce and Dick don't even want a butler because they're worried about him discovering their secret identities. He was a retired actor and intelligence agent, and both of these prior careers have been used in post-crisis versions. Alfred has, of course, been portrayed by several actors, both live action and in animation, the most liked being Alan Napier, Michael Goff, Michael Caine, and Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. The first person to play the character on screen was William Austin in the 1943 Batman serial. Believe it or not, it's this interpretation of the character that forever changed Alfred from the fat, younger Alfred to the older, thinner version with a mustache, because DC decided they wanted their comics to parallel the screen. Even this early, it's interesting that DC knew how important movies were to them. I've mentioned another example of this on Superhero Rewind with the Fleischer Superman serials, since they were the reason Superman started flying instead of leaping in the comics. And now it's time to find out what I've pulled from the vast, mysterious vortex we call the Comic Book Vault. Today on the Comic Vault, we're going to take a look at Hawkeye #1, the first in a 4-issue limited series from 1983. Hawkeye decides to leave the Avengers and go solo, getting work as chief of security at Cross Technological Enterprises. He has a hover sled he gets around in, and he's dating a woman named Sheila who also works for Cross as their public relations person. He seems to be doing pretty well for himself. The first half of the issue focuses on establishing the status quo and providing some background for Hawkeye, namely about how he learned to be an expert at using the bow and arrow. When Clint was younger, he became a marksman for a circus act, until he discovered the man running the circus was a crook, and he tried to kill Clint when he figured out the sort of operation he was running. The present storyline begins to parallel the past, when Hawkeye discovers that Cross is up to some illegal activities. They're putting together a masked mind control device, which Mockingbird figures out. Hawkeye gets in a fight with her when he finds her snooping around the property. She explains what she's found out, and he doesn't believe it right away, until they're both captured and thrown into a pit by thugs working for Cross, where they plan to dump acid on them in a giant death trap scenario. Sheila reveals that she's in on the mind control scheme and that she only dated Hawkeye to keep him out of the way. Hawkeye and Mockingbird use Hawkeye's hover sled by remote and escape. The thing that made me enjoy this less than I might have is Hawkeye's attitude. I understand he's angry that he's been played by the woman he was beginning to have feelings for, and that he's now been burned by 2 corrupt employers in similar circumstances. But I don't like how he takes it out on Mockingbird. She's the one person on his side, and he really takes his problems out on her, to the point of refusing to answer her when he drops her off somewhere with his hover sled and she asks if he'll come back later to pick her up. Gee, thanks for the lift, but here I am standing on this rooftop in the middle of nowhere, and you're so caught up in your own troubles, you can't even be bothered to fly close enough to the roof when you do come back so I don't have to risk my life leaping onto the back of your hovercraft. Seriously, that's just what he does, and he blames her just because she was there. Does he really wish he didn't know his girlfriend was a corrupt agent and the company he works for is plotting against the superhero community? But the story is pretty good, and I appreciate the conflict of Hawkeye's present situation paralleling his past. Hopefully he gets over himself a little throughout the series. I like the artwork quite a bit. Sometimes it's very detailed, and sometimes it's minimalistic, depending on what's necessary for the scene. Sometimes, especially inside buildings, the background will be just one solid color, so we're focused on the action. It's a pretty decent setup for a corporate espionage story. As I mentioned last week, I'm going back into business for myself, selling comics on eBay, and this is one of the many things I'm going to have up this week. I've got the whole miniseries, the whole 4-issue miniseries, if you'd like to take a look at that. Other stuff up for sale this week includes several X-Men minis, including X-Men and Clandestine, and the Phoenix Resurrection from Malibu. I've got an assorted lot of Venom comics, Alan Moore's Death Blow from Wildstorm, a 3-issue mini, and the first 4 issues of Zorro from Marvel. And lots more stuff. All that stuff goes up on Friday. Be sure and take a look. The link is below. And now let's find out what the year was for this week's Batmobile. And this Batmobile did indeed appear in 1993. It first showed up in Legends of the Dark Knight, number 29. Well, that's all the time I have for you tonight. Thanks very much for watching. I'd like to thank my special guest, Doomsvince.
I guess I'll thank Doomsvents. Thanks to our official sponsor, Pop Culture Comics. If you're ever in the Kansas City area, be sure to check out Pop Culture Comics. They're my favorite comic book store. They're located in Overland Park, Kansas. And be sure to support your local comic book store. And remember, if you want to draw, but you're not a fantastic artist, nobody can stop you from drawing. They just might ask you not to bring your work to parties. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm Captain Logan, signing off.